Hey everyone, welcome back to the Climate Realism discussion series. I'm Andy Singer hosting today's discussion, and today with me we have Sterling Burnett, Anthony Watts, and James Taylor. First off, how are you, Sterling?
Doing well.
Doing well. James, doing well as well?
You bet, as well as one can be, considering all the challenges we face each day presenting climate truth to the world.
It gives us good material to keep going with. And what about you, Anthony?
Oh, well, I'm weller than all those two guys combined.
Weller than all two of them combined. Wow, we got some great words in there. Weller. I like it. So yeah, obviously we're doing this video today because there's the tornadoes that tore across the Midwest, primarily Kentucky. The updates that I've been reading see that the death toll is around 74 people, but over 100 people are missing. And I'm sure we've all seen that the mainstream or corporate media, depending on what term you like to use, is jumping onto this as another example of climate change in action, that what the future brings. So what I wanted to ask all of you, and whoever wants to jump in on this question, go for it, is like I'm saying, Biden and his agency heads are saying that climate change is responsible for these tornadoes that ripped through Arkansas, Illinois, Kentucky, Missouri, and Tennessee on December 10th. How true is this, and what evidence do we have for this claim?
Well, it's not true at all, not even in the slightest, because there's several things going on here that President Biden did not consider. First of all, yes, there's an increase in all tornadoes since 1950, but it's a false increase. And it has to do with several things. It has to do with the fact that we have greater population in the United States. So people are spread out more. And because they're spread out more, they're going to see more tornadoes that got missed in the past in sparsely populated areas. That's number one. Number two, we have more tools now, like Doppler radar. Doppler radar can spot tornadoes when a person cannot. And those are going into the newer reports that we've had in the last 20 years. 20 years ago, we didn't have Doppler radar. We couldn't see tornadoes on radar hardly at all. There were some occasions, but Doppler radar has revolutionized the reporting of tornadoes, especially the weak ones, the small ones, the F0s and the F1s that don't do the catastrophic damage. And then we've got the fact that we've got 24/7 news and storm chasers and millions of people with cell phones all over the country. And so they're able to capture these things and document them much faster and better than we used to in the past. So yes, while all tornadoes are on the increase, other kinds of tornadoes, the deadly ones, like we saw in Kentucky, that EF3, are not. Here's a graph that you can look at that shows you what I'm talking about, that the actual really heavy-duty tornadoes have gone down in frequency over the last 50 years.
Well, I'm going to, I guess...
It took me a minute to get your chart up. Sorry, Anthony.
Yeah, that's okay. This graph represents the strongest tornadoes, the violent ones that are EF3 and higher. There's the enhanced Fujita scale goes from EF0, the weakest ones, to EF5, the strongest, most devastating. And so this graph charts EF3, EF4, and EF5 tornadoes. And as you can see, there's a clear downward trend in this. And, you know, it makes sense. We've got a moderately warming world. Because of that, we have a less of a temperature differential between the North Pole and the equator. And because of that, less temperature differential, we don't get quite so much of the difference between cold and warm air masses when they collide in tunnel systems. And so that results in less energetic tornadoes. So that's why we've got less in the reporting of these violent tornadoes.
But also, you know, to be fair, we have less in the reporting of nonviolent tornadoes over the same 50-year period, as tracking has become better. We have satellites in the sky, we have planes in the sky, we have all sorts of ways of tracking it. Plus, you know, televisions became more common starting in the late 60s and 70s. So cameramen, there are more cameramen tracking these things than there were in the 50s, when relatively few people had, there were relatively few stations and relatively few people had TVs. So it's both the number of tornadoes and the number of severe tornadoes that are declining significantly, or that have declined significantly over the past 50 years of modern sort of tracking and record keeping.
Right. So if I could condense this to 30 seconds, and by the way, let me share my screen here.
Yep.
I'm going to share this chart right here. This is the National Oceanic and Atmospheric.
We don't actually see the chart, James.
Oh, well, forget it then. But anyway, Oh, here we go. It's a different thing. Forget it.
Yeah.
So basically, it's this. We know that the number of violent tornadoes has declined. NOAA has documented that. The number of all tornadoes has declined. Even at most, it's about staying the same. The fact of the matter is this: global warming will not make all tornadoes go away. If we want to draw a link between global warming and tornadoes, the only link we can join together is that global warming is making violent, deadly tornadoes less frequent and less severe. There you have it. The fact that global warming occurs and tornadoes occur is about the same as saying that cell phones now exist and tornadoes exist. So cell phone usage causes tornadoes. Or millennials did not exist 30 years ago. Millennials cause tornadoes. It's idiotic. The data show that as the earth warms, tornadoes are becoming less frequent and severe. End of story.
Sounds like a great topic for the Babylon Beach. Millennials cause more tornadoes.
That's another excuse to stop, putting us millennials everywhere. I don't know. Thankfully, Gen Z seems to be the annoying one, though. They've moved on from me, which is great. But yeah, so you did write that the tornadoes have been declining over the 50 years. And so you're attributing that decline, James, to the modest warming the Earth has seen in that time frame.
Right. As Anthony explained, look, tornadoes are caused when you have a clash between very cold, dry air and warm, moist air. And the warming that is occurring predominantly toward the poles. In other words, it's making the cold air less cold. There is now less clash between cold air and warm air. Therefore, you get weaker and fewer tornadoes. And regardless of the hullabaloo about why that occurs, you just have to look at the data. Yeah. There is a dramatic decline in tornadoes, especially strong tornadoes, in the last 50 to 70 years. The incidence of F3 or stronger tornadoes, the kind that wreaked such havoc this past weekend, is about 40% less now than it was in the 1950s and the 1970s. The fact that a few still occur, that not all of them have gone away as the earth warmed, doesn't mean that global warming causes the few that still occur to occur. Global warming has likely saved thousands of lives by preventing many more of these tornadoes from occurring each decade.
More evidence backing up James's link is the fact that when have we recorded the fewest tornadoes in history, of recorded history? When have we recorded the fewest deaths from tornadoes? When have we recorded the fewest EF5 tornadoes and the longest period between EF3 or higher tornadoes? That's all been in the last decade, by the way, which climate alarmists constantly claim has been the warmest decade on record. Okay, so the warmest decade on record has the fewest hurricanes, the fewest violent hurricanes, the fewest deaths from hurricanes, and we're going to. It seems like, if you're just talking about tornadoes, tornadoes. Maybe we should be celebrating global warming rather than castigating it, if that's what you really are focused on.
It speaks to the fact that anytime someone brings up climate change, almost always they bring it up in a negative context. Climate change must be bad. They just gloss over the benefits that we're getting from it. I mean, the earth is greener. We've got crop production that's up because we've got an increased carbon dioxide aiding photosynthesis in the atmosphere. We're having less tornadoes because we have less clash between cold and warm air. We have less intense hurricanes. We had a hurricane drought that went on for a long period of time in the supposed period of warming. So, they're just glossing over the fact that there's benefits. They only concentrate on the negative, and that's the failure of climate alarmism.
Yeah, add to that, you don't see mass population flockage to Siberia, to northern Canada, to remote Alaska, to southern Argentina to take advantage of the climate. No, people dread those places. It might be nice to visit now and then. I'd love to visit those places. But people live where it's warmer. Warmer climate is more beneficial to humans. And on top of that, we get fewer of these extreme weather events as well.
When Americans who have the means, and not just Americans, but Scandinavians and others who have the means to retire, what they don't move is to northern climes. Minnesota is not a hotbed of retirement communities.
You're saying northern Canada isn't the hot
Phoenix,
spot?
Phoenix, right. Tucson.
How many people move from Miami to New York City when they retire?
I just went from Fort Lauderdale to Chicago, and I would much rather be in Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah. So, and this is, it's sad. It's truly sad that our politicians have politicized this so much, but Biden company, they're just following the playbook set out by Rahm Emanuel to never let a crisis go to waste. It doesn't matter what the crisis is. They're going to link it to climate change, no matter how much suffering there is, no matter how much they are dancing on the backs of those who suffer.
Well, another point, just to briefly wrap it up on this point, with tornadoes, we showed the graphs. Anthony showed the graph. If you go to climaterealism.com, each of us has posted an article in the past few days, and we show the graphs. If you don't want to look at the graphs, if you worry about maybe the graphs aren't accurate, although they're coming from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, if you don't trust the data themselves, then go to the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change reports. The United Nations itself says it can't find any linkage between global warming and tornadoes. So anytime, whether it's Joe Biden's FEMA administrator who says this is the new normal because of global warming, or any other climate activist or media talking head who says global warming played any role in this, then remind them that they are attacking science as they define science. They are attacking the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. They are denying the climate consensus.
Yeah. Now, so we got one comment here, which I want to show on screen and have you all respond to. It comes from female Casey Royals fan.
Yep.
And she says that it's unusual to have a tornado in December and that she's currently in her basement right now due to a tornado warning. So first off, female Kansas City Royals fan, I hope everything goes well for you. But I want you guys to respond to the statement that we don't usually have tornadoes in December.
Yeah. Well, I'm praying for her. And but she's not the first one to observe this. Of course, she's living it. But just 5 years ago, I was living it. 5 people in my own home and a dog were huddled in my downstairs half bath with motorcycle and bicycle helmets on, hoping the house didn't come down around us. Wow. About 800 yards away, a tornado took down power lines and the roof off a gas station. And half a mile away, it destroyed 400 homes, killed 10 people. And destroyed 32 businesses. Now, when did that occur? December 26th, the day after Christmas. That's why I had guessed.
Yeah.
December 27th, we were hit again with tornadoes. December 28th, we had tornadoes, all in the same cycle. That is, it's bad, but they're not unusual in the sense of they've never unique. That's something that Biden's FEMA head, she actually said, we've never seen this before. It's like, hold it. Now, true, she wasn't head of FEMA just 6 years ago, but certainly it's within her memory, and her agency sent a lot of people down here. So she should know that, yeah, it has happened even later than it occurred. It happened in 1957 in Illinois, an outbreak of tornadoes. It happened in 1953. An outbreak of tornadoes that killed a lot of people in Missouri. The point is,
there was the Palm Sunday tornado that was very historic that killed a lot of people. So yeah, it's happened on Sundays and Decembers and so forth. There's no time when we haven't had tornadoes.
Right. So NOAA keeps track of tornadoes not just by year but by month, and the NOAA data don't show any increase in winter tornadoes, but let's assume for the sake of argument that it did, although it doesn't. Is there anything more deadly or horrible about a tornado in December than in April? I mean, really, no. A tornado is a tornado. A death is a death. Everyone is tragic. So if tornadoes were becoming more frequent, more severe, more deadly, then that would be something very worrying and tragic. But the data show just the opposite. If theoretically, even though there is no increase in winter tornadoes, let's say there were, because that's some of the allegations in the media, it's expanding tornado season. Well, if the length of the season expands, which it isn't, but if it did, but the overall number went down, why is it a bad thing? I'd rather have a longer season with fewer tornadoes than one that's not quite so long that has many more tornadoes. So even if it were to be the case that we can get them now in times when we didn't used to, again, if there were fewer of them overall, if fewer people are dying overall, that's a good thing.
And moving forward with what you just said there, so if they're saying that the season is expanding because the Earth is getting slightly warmer, what they're essentially saying is that we have more time throughout these 365 days of the year that the Earth is actually warm. And that, again, ignores all the positive benefits of a warmer Earth. They're just zoning in on one thing, which the data does show isn't actually a true narrative. But they're, again, ignoring all the benefits of a slightly longer warm season.
You know, so Deanna Criswell, Biden's FEMA administrator, she said this on CNN. She said, "This is going to be our new normal."
Yeah.
A quote, "The effects we are seeing of climate change are the crisis of our generation." Well, you know, what effects? Fewer tornadoes? Fewer powerful tornadoes? If that's the new normal, I'm on board.
Yeah, right.
I mean, maybe I don't wind up in my bathroom quite so often because I'm almost there, you know, during tornadoes, what's called tornado season. Maria and I, my wife, we're there almost every year for at least 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
Off and on. So if the new normal is we have fewer tornadoes and fewer powerful tornadoes, I'm all for it. However, we know that's not what the implication of what she's saying, what she was trying to imply.
Yeah, I want to point out a couple of things. First of all, this is a weather event that's going on right now today in the Midwest. We have a very strong set of severe weather going through Minnesota and Iowa and soon to be Illinois right now. And this is all weather driven because the jet stream in California has come sharply down. And when it goes sharply down in California, it goes up in the Midwest and it brings in more Gulf air. It's a weather event. That's number one. Secondly, I want to give some full disclosure here. I used to be a storm chaser way back in the day when I was at Purdue University. I worked with researchers there on that. I also designed one of the instruments that went into something called the Totable Tornado Observatory at the National Severe Storms Lab. It's called Toto. And then you may have seen the movie Twister, where the movie Twister, they had this thing they were pushing off to get into the path of tornado. That was modeled after that experiment. So I know a few things about tornadoes, and I can tell you clearly that the tornadoes in the past have been much worse. And the other thing is that right now we're doing such a much better job at warning for tornadoes ahead of time that we are saving lives. The National Weather Service, through its Doppler radar program and through its public education program, has done wonders to improve warnings and get warnings out earlier, and so people can take shelter. So the actual number of deaths from tornadoes has actually declined in the last couple of decades. So that's a good thing. But, you know, that's not enough for climate alarmists. They have to go and play with the data because they just can't believe that things are getting better. Our favorite climate haranguer, Michael Mann, has sent out a tweet today saying, "Oh, the data's all wrong. The data's wrong, and it's false. It's boo, boo, hiss, you know." Look at this. He's saying a graph falsely purporting to depict a decrease in the strongest tornadoes is making the denialist rounds again.
I'll zoom in on it.
Yeah. He says that's an intentional deception. Well, I'm sorry, Dr. Mann, you're full of crap. That's data that's coming from the Storm Prediction Center. That's plotted exactly from them. That's not been modified. It's not been changed. It's not been added.
And the Storm Prediction Center is the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration.
That's why
the graph is
doesn't like
simply
it.
the data that our federal government reports. If
Exactly.
that's deception, then he should go complain to Joe Biden, his hero, about this.
This fits Michael Mann's MO. He doesn't like this unmodified data. He wants you to modify it.
Well, the problem with Michael Mann is he makes all these fabulous claims, and he doesn't want anyone to be able to present data because then he's all wet. So if you present data, he has to go throw mud at you. Michael Mann, you're a fraud. Present data if you want to make the argument. We present data, you don't.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean,
and then when you present data to this man, and I'll say he's got an ego so big he can't fit through most doors. Yeah. He will just simply block people if he doesn't like what you have to say. If you're presenting straight data to him, he doesn't like it, he'll block you.
But he's going beyond that, Anthony. He's blocking everybody. But now because, well, he can't block everybody, he can only block people on his website. He's calling for Facebook and Twitter and YouTube to block, censor, and ban all climate information that he does not agree with. This is unbelievable. And it's unbelievable that these big tech groups are taking him seriously. Folks, if you believe in freedom of speech, if you don't believe in digital book burning, make your voices heard. That you can't have Michael Mann become the minister of science in a dystopian state.
Minister of truth. Yeah.
The minister of truth.
So
blocking objective National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration data from the internet.
I have personal experience with man on this. At a conference, we both have articles in a single volume out of Cambridge University Press. And I asked him point blank, I said, what would it take for you to believe, for you to think that the theory that humans are causing dangerous climate change is wrong? And he told me all of physics would have to be overturned. I said, what? I said, you mean the laws?
You cannot change the laws of physics.
As I said, the laws of conservation and of energy and entropy and all those things have to be wrong for you to be wrong about climate change. He says, that's right. Everything I've ever learned about physics would have to be changed. It's like, wow. I mean, he gave me an answer. Yeah. I know climate scientists who have not given me an answer to that question. He gave me an answer, but man, it sounds to me like an answer that, it's extreme hubris on his part. Yeah. To think that all of physics has to be changed for him to be wrong about climate change. And that's why he likes to get rid of data, because data doesn't support his claims so often.
I mean, yeah, I would agree with that. For the most part, I think we got what we needed to get out here about the tornadoes. I mean, we've shown the data. F3 and greater tornadoes are decreasing over the last 50 years. Tornadoes in general aren't abnormal to see in December. They're more rare, but they're not abnormal. Do any of you have anything you want to get across to our listeners, or have you seen any comments on the side you want to address before we wrap up?
One thing I'd like to remind our viewers, listeners, for these graphs, for this information, go to climaterealism.com. Each of us, Sterling, Anthony, and I have posted an article in the past couple of days on this topic. Each of us have embedded those graphs with that data in our articles. So therefore, after we're done with this live stream, our information, really the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's information is right there that you can show to your friends, to your colleagues, show them the truth. It's at climaterealism.com.
Great. I would like to add that a lot of people try to equate weather and climate as being the same, and of course they're not. Climate is what you expect. It's something over a 30-year period. Climate's what you expect, but weather is what you get. That's what actually happens. And so you can't really conflate something that happened in the span of an hour, like a tornado, to something that is a 30-year interval, which is climate. But that doesn't stop people who think that climate change is basically going to destroy the earth and roast us all.
Yeah, it's too mainstream of a view, in my opinion. But all right, so with that, everyone, you go to the website James said, climaterealism.com. We have articles coming out there every single day. Follow us on YouTube. That's where most of you are watching this right now. We put up a video actually yesterday evening about these tornadoes. That was one of my videos. And then check out climateataglance.com. I've got the link here at the bottom. It's we have a whole article on there just about tornadoes that you can go to and quickly get information. And pretty much if you have any sort of natural disaster, like a tornado, a hurricane, or anything, go to that website and you'll find our abbreviated summary, which will give you the actual information you need when there's the media onslaught we're facing today. And outside of that, Sterling, yes.
Yeah, just real quickly, I offer prayers for everyone who's suffering from this. It's a terrible tragedy.
Yeah.
And I hope you get the help you need and the medical treatment you need.
That is the hardest part about these situations, when there actually are tragedies going on, but the media jumps on them to push their own narrative. And it often feels like when you're pushing back, you're pushing back against what happened, and you're not. You're just giving the actual information and not trying to use tragedy for an advantage.
Yeah, and as a note, on Saturday evening, as these tornadoes were first unfolding, I was prepared to post an article on this, but I didn't want to be doing this while the tragedy was occurring. I wanted to show people, hey, these are less frequent and severe. So we did not post anything on Climate Realism until Monday about midday after the Biden administration and after climate alarmists turned this into a political issue. It's one thing if the facts were on their side. At some point in time, it would be appropriate. They jumped the gun, and they jumped the gun with fraudulent assertions. And that's why we're addressing this now. And yes, indeed, like Sterling said, we hope and pray that the fatalities will be kept to a minimum, and that these events will continue to become less frequent and less severe.
We just got a comment. You can't throw money at changing the weather. I mean, the real question is, how many of your tax dollars, James, will it cost to get rid of this tornado? And the answer is there's no way to do that. But
there's no amount. No amount of money will end tornadoes or hurricanes,
but it will slowly eroded our freedoms.
Yep.
And then for those, just make sure on the very bottom of the screen, I'm trying to point there's a little subscribe button on the very bottom right. Make sure you hit that so you don't miss these weekly talks. Someone just asked if we're on Rumble. We put our podcast on Rumble. We are expanding onto more of the platform right now. But outside of that, let's say goodbye to the good folks.
Thank you all.
Take care.